We'll start out with the changes to Claudio that surprisingly turned out to be the least exciting. Claudio can now access weaker versions of his Starburst moves even when he doesn't have Starburst. But they're really not very good, so let's take a quick look at them now. Down 2-2 comes with all the downsides of the Starburst version and none of the reward. It still isn't natural on hit, and it only does 21 damage and it doesn't even give you plus frames when it hits. It is only -12 on block and you can't low parry the second hit after getting hit by or blocking the first hit. So the only way you're going to get really punished for this is if they low parry the first hit on a read, but it's just not that rewarding for what it is. And you'd rather not give them the chance of getting used to the animation of the move so that you can maybe catch them with the Starburst launcher later. But it isn't quite as disappointing as the non-Starburst version of forward 1+2, 1+2, which loses being a launcher, being safe, and being hit confirmable. So it's a 30 damage mid-mid knockdown that doesn't wall splat, is horrible on whiff, is extremely linear, and it's -14 on block. The only thing it has going for it is its range, but Claudio's whiff punishment has already been buffed in other areas, and we'll get to that later. The Starburst version of forward 1+2, 1+2 now launches even on a side-turned or back-turned opponent. It's actually really nice to now be able to use down 1-2 in combos when you don't have Starburst. This actually really helps Claudio's new and improved combo game that we'll be getting into soon. But in the neutral it's kind of whatever. It's a safe mid-mid at -8, which sounds really nice, but it isn't even natural on hit, so you're kind of just giving up your turn for nothing whenever you use it. However, the Starburst version of down 1-2 has been given some massive buffs to make it more viable when next to the other incredible Starburst moves. It's now +8 on block, and it's a 39 damage knockdown and wall splat tool. You can now access back 4-3-2 outside of Starburst. It seems totally useless. It's not natural, it's punishable, and it doesn't even seem to have any real use in combos. However, the final hit of the Starburst version of this string got a huge damage buff, meaning that you can do some very impressive wall damage. Without Starburst, down back 1+2 is very odd. The second hit isn't an unblockable like the Starburst version, but it is a natural combo, 40 damage mid-mid. And if you block it, it appears to be totally safe. It may sound pretty nice, but the opponent can quite easily step or backdash between the two hits on block, which gives a free whiff punish. Claudio has a brand new poke string in 1-3, which is a pretty generic high-low like a lot of characters have. It's minus on hit, it's -12 on block. If the jab hits, they can't low parry the low, but if they block the jab, then they can low parry it. It's not a game changer, but for a character whose problem has always been bad lows, this is a great way to just irritate the opponent. It is, of course, also a very nice way to close out rounds. The other totally new move that Claudio has gained is a new extension off of his back 4. Back 4-1 is a long range, safe, mid-high. It's natural on hit and the second hit screws and wall splats, and the second hit by itself is a counter hit screw launcher, so you can catch people by delaying the second hit. It being safe means that you can now quote-unquote mix it up with back 4-2, which has been changed. We'll get into that in the next section. And back 4-1 is also incredibly useful in combos. Claudio has always had access to strong combos if you have the execution for them, but now with the addition of back 4-1 and down 1-2, his very basic bread and butter combos have also been vastly improved for both damage and wall carry. There may still be some optimization to do, but let's take a look at a couple of examples for now. After your launch, do back 3, forward 4, back 3, forward 2, back 4-1 for the screw, while running 2. This is the basic combo that I would recommend to newcomers, because it already does more damage and wall carry than the old basic combo, and it's also very flexible. You can swap out the ender very easily from while running 2 to other options like back 4-1, back 4-2, up forward 3+4, etc. for wall carry. Another option that's better off of some launchers or when you need maximum wall carry is launch forward 4, back 3, forward 2, dash, back 3, down 1, 2 while running 2. It's a little bit harder, but it's definitely worth learning.
Non intendiamo metterci al servizio dei capricci di qualche corporazione.
I mentioned before that back 4-2 had been changed, so let's start with that. Back 4-2 has now been made into a natural combo, which is an amazing change for Claudio because it means it can be used as a whiff punisher. However, it is now punishable at -12 on block. It's both a buff and a nerf for this move, but I think that overall I much prefer its utility now. I'd rather have a 30 damage, long range, knockdown whiff punisher that activates Starburst on hit than I would just some delayable safe mid string. Even more importantly than that though, is that this change is a huge buff to Claudio's Rage Drive, which is now also a natural whiff punisher for 1 billion damage. I think this change has definitely gone under the radar, but Claudio's Rage Drive is now a +8 on block, long range mid launcher. It's really good now. And while we're on the subject of buffed plus on block mids for Claudio, his forward 4 has been buffed from +2 to +4 on block and it forces crouch. So it's now basically a Mishima forward 4 and it's an amazing pressure mid. And don't forget that on counter hit you're going to get a free down back 3 for 45 damage overall. And it doesn't stop there. Up forward 3 has been buffed from +1 to +2 on block and it still forces crouch, and it's also now a big damage counter hit launcher. We like that. And speaking of counter hits, it's time to talk about the changes to forward 3 and 4-3. The one big change that a lot of Claudio players aren't very happy about is the fact that forward 3 is now a high instead of a mid. It also low crushes a bit slower, but I don't think anyone really cares about that. But to compensate for this change, it's now a counter hit launcher and it does a lot of damage. They've also buffed it from -9 on block to -5, but even more relevant than the frames, because I know you don't think that's a big deal, is the pushback on block now. This is really hard to catch up to if you just do a single backdash afterwards, and it makes it an amazing keep out tool, with huge reward on counter hit. In the big picture, I honestly think forward 3 is a buff to Claudio, because he already has back 1, a homing, safe, knockdown and wall splat mid, that always left you in a better position on block than forward 3 did anyway due to the pushback. And at the wall, it leaves you in a great position for resplat combos. And look at this range that you're left at on block. You can throw this out, it's got really nice range, and afterwards, once again, you can just do a single backdash and it really limits their options. It is hard to argue, however, that this wasn't a pretty big nerf to 4-3 as a counter hit fish tool. It being a high string that doesn't jail means that if you're just going to throw this out, you do take the risk of being ducked and launched yourself. What they have done, however, is they've added a delay window to 4-3. This doesn't help with the fact that it's now a natural combo and hit, I'll get into that in a minute, but what it does do is it helps you to counter hit confirm the string. You can kind of see me mostly being consistent with it here. It's pretty difficult, but it's there. As I just alluded to, however, 4-3 is now a natural combo on hit, meaning it's a 12 frame, 28 damage, spin and wall splat punisher. Funnily enough, as well as giving him a brand new 12 frame block punisher, they also just buffed his existing 12 frame block punisher. Forward 2-2 got a big damage buff, so now you're choosing between a 33 damage knockdown that kind of resets the neutral but gives you Starburst, or a 28 damage spin and wall splat for pressure. Back 1+2, Claudio's Power Crush move is now a knockdown on hit. It's nice to have a Power Crush that can give you a wall splat, as it's kind of the only time when using a move like this is worth the risk. It's also now minus 13 on block rather than minus 12, so some characters can now punish it harder than they could before. Widely regarded as Claudio's best low in Season 1, Sidestep 4 has actually been buffed. On counter hit you get this face down, feet towards knockdown, and it looks like it's going to have some nice Oki on it too. It has been nerfed to minus 12 on block rather than minus 11, but this is really only relevant in about 4 matchups. The vast majority of characters are going to have to stick to their 11 frame while standing punish anyway. Claudio's standing free now has a different effect on counter hit and on airborne hit. This seems mostly relevant for close range resplats after a wall bounce. Down forward free 1 now has this animation on side turn opponents. The second hit also received a pretty massive damage buff, making this his optimal damage 14 frame block punisher, and it's a knockdown, and it also buffs it as wall carrying combos. And it's all buffs for this move because it's also now minus 12 on block rather than minus 13. Claudio can still punish it hard, but some characters can't. It was already a popular strategy in Season 1 to hit confirm down forward 3-2 at the wall and eventually condition them into running into down forward 3-1, which is also natural. So if they get hit by either mid, they take a full wall combo. This is only going to be even better in Season 2 now. The final hit of 2-1-2 no longer causes Starburst on hit, meaning it can be more useful in combos now. But you can't use it to activate Starburst with half decent damage at the wall anymore. The general utility of this string in a poking sense has also been changed quite a lot. Standing 2 by itself has worse frames on block and on hit, however 2-1 is now much more plus on hit and has gone from minus 11 on block to minus 6. This makes it a really nice high mid poke string, and you can even get some fake pressure on block, because while the final hit is still minus 13, it's also now a counter hit insta-screw launcher. Up forward 2 got some really strange buffs and some really strange nerfs. It's got a lot more range now, but it's gone from being plus 9 to minus 9. And I could go into it more, but I think it's more important to just say that it's now just a move you should never ever use. Hop kick now flips over quote unquote grounded opponents, but this only really seems to matter when you're using it as a wall combo. You're giving up quite a bit of damage to use this, so I'll have to look into the Oki before I decide whether it's worth it or not. Hopkick has also had its whiff recovery nerfed by 2 frames, meaning it's slightly more sluggish and easy to whiff punish. And speaking of whiff punishing, it's time to get onto the Forward 2 series, which, quite a lot like the Back 4 series we touched on earlier, is a fast, long range mid with multiple extensions that are all natural. As you probably already know, Forward 2 1+2 is Claudio's wall bounce, and it's a natural 34 damage mid string. It's minus 13 on block, so definitely not something you want to just be throwing out all the time, but it's nice to know that the high extension has also been seriously buffed. Forward 2-2 is the better option in the open. It's now a natural 34 damage knockdown that also activates Starburst. And if they aren't ducking the string, because either they can't or you've conditioned them with Forward 2 1+2, it's minus 1 on block and forces crouch, which is actually an advantageous position in my opinion. The other really cool thing about the Forward 2 series is that it also works from crouch, with full crouch down forward 2-2 or full crouch down forward 2 1+2. From crouch it comes out at 14 frames, making it your optimal 14 frame punish from crouch. It will also be your optimal punish from crouch when near enough to the wall. Forward 2-2 now activating Starburst on hit also makes it a decent option for a wall combo. The second hit of Claudio's down back 4-3 now does less damage, is punishable on block at minus 13, and has gone from +2 on hit to -2 on hit, which all sounds terrible. But it's now a natural combo. Now yes, it's -2 on hit, and it only does 17 damage, and if they block the low and duck the high they can launch you, right? It's certainly not the best low in the world, but for Claudio this is such an amazing change. Another low to irritate the opponent with and chip them down. The first hit of this, by the way, is 15 frames. It's quite a powerful low for how fast it is and how good the range is on it. And while -2 on hit might sound pretty bad, look at the range it leaves you at. Once again, this is the range Claudio wants to be at. A single backdash is going to net you a lot of free whiff punishes. Claudio's down forward 2 has received a few small buffs. It now does 19 damage instead of 17, and it's +5 on hit rather than +2. It's still -13 on block, and it now has a bit more pushback on hit, which now that it's +5 is probably actually a bad thing. But it is now overall slightly more rewarding on normal hit as opposed to just when it counter hits. Claudio's forward 2-1 1+2 string has received a few changes. The second hit is basically now a bit safer on block at -10, and it's also been made kind of a wild gamble string, because if the first hit gets a counter hit, the whole thing is natural, and at the wall this is going to net you huge damage. In my opinion, the Tekken team have done an amazing job with Claudio for Season 2. He's managed to keep his archetype whilst also becoming much more powerful and much more well-rounded. His new lows are really helpful to his game plan, his block punishment is improved, his damage and wall carry is improved, and the buffs to his rage drive and his starburst moves make his comeback potential much stronger. The way that he can chain plus on block moves together when he has Rage and Starburst is pretty incredible. I want to go over a sequence that's very realistic in match with you really quickly right now. So in a situation where you have both Rage and Starburst, let's say that you manage to get them to block a while running 2, something that's going to happen fairly often in a Claudio match. It's +7 on block, and even in Season 2, you're not going to be too likely to want to duck him that often. If you have Starburst, you could choose to use Starburst down 1-2. If it lands, you get a 39 damage knockdown, and if they block it, it's +8 on block. With Rage, you could go into your Rage Drive, which is now a +8 on block natural launcher. And if they do block it, or get hit by it, you get Starburst again, so you could go into down 1-2. Now, they've either taken 39 damage and a knockdown, or they're at -8 again. And at this point, you still have access to while running 2, forward 4, up forward 3. Claudio can put a lot of mental and literal pressure on the opponents now, and any of those options you could have also chosen to go for a low, and they might not be the scariest lows in the game, but you can enforce them much better now. The fact that in a situation like this, one of the worst things that can happen is that they block all of your pressure and just keep giving you plus frames is amazing, even if Claudio's mix-up potential still isn't the best. I want to thank all of you that are still here for watching through to the end. Please like, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I worked really hard on it. Thanks guys, I'll see you all soon.